Good evening and welcome to tonight's League of Women Voters City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Doris Kupfer. I'm the chair of the Norman League of Women Voters. And I want to let you know that the League is a nonpartisan but political organization that does not support candidates or political parties. We encourage informed and active participation in government at all levels, so we are very eager to present tonight's City Council Candidate Forum. Tonight's event is not a debate between candidates, but an opportunity for voters to ask questions and hear these candidates address how they propose to work on important issues facing Norman. We have candidates with us tonight running for Ward 2, 4, 6, and 8 council positions. 7 are joining via Zoom this evening, and we have 3 here with us in the City Council chambers. Our moderator this evening is League member Sandy Bayhan, and she will be asking the questions that we receive from the audience this evening. So consider now having a look at the YouTube connection for the comment section. And at any time now and throughout the forum, we ask you to type in questions for the candidates. They can either be for all candidates or they can be ward specific. And we have League members monitoring the feed, and they will get those questions to Sandy. We'll begin the forum with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate, and then the questions will begin. The question responses will be limited to 1 minute. The initial question is one that we shared with each candidate ahead of time, but after that the questions will be from the audience and League members. And I want to thank now the City of Norman IT team. They have been phenomenal in moving us from a completely in-person forum event to a very mixed media forum, in person but on YouTube for you, the viewers, and Zoom for those candidates that wanted to remain remote. And I greatly appreciate their effort. I want also to thank our audience, you, for participating this evening. And remember now to vote on February 8th. I also want to mention that for more information on the candidates, go to the League's vote411.org site, and there you'll be able to click in and find information on both the ward candidates and the mayoral candidates. And with that, I'm going to turn the forum over to Sandy Bayhan so we can begin. Sandy?
Thank you. My name is Sandy Bayhan, and as a member of the Norman League of Women Voters, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this public forum featuring the candidates for the office of City Council. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that believes in the importance of informed citizens, active participation in the political process, and the right of every citizen to vote. Membership information is online at the League's website and on Facebook. The video for the Mayor's Forum, which we held last Thursday evening here in this chamber, is currently available on our website and on Facebook. The video for tonight's City Council Forum will be available within the next couple of days at the same place, our website and Facebook. The audience this evening is invited to submit written questions at any time through the City of Norman YouTube website. The questions will then be screened to eliminate duplicate or inappropriate questions, and questions may be addressed to all or to individual candidates or to individual ward candidates, but each candidate is free to answer or to refuse any question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. This forum is designed to give Norman citizens an opportunity to become better informed on issues affecting the general election on February the 8th. The League of Women Voters neither endorses nor rejects the views of candidates here tonight and does not assume responsibility for the candidates' responses. This evening's program will feature the candidates for City Council from Wards 2, 4, 6, and 8. Our question screeners are Alicia Cargila and Doris Kupfer. Couldn't recognize her behind your mask. Each candidate will have the opportunity to give a 1-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement, and the order of speaking has been predetermined earlier based on the situation. With us tonight are Ward 2 candidates Lauren Schuler via Zoom and John Argo, Ward 4 candidates Helen Grant via Zoom, Gail Gibson, Dwayne Harrison via Zoom, and Teresa Borum. Ward 6 candidates Alexander Torvey via Zoom and Elizabeth Foreman via Zoom, and Ward 8 candidates Matt Peacock via Zoom and Scott Dixon via Zoom. Okay, we'll start with the 1-minute opening statement from each candidate, and then we will proceed from there. We'll begin tonight with John Argo, your opening statement.
Am I on? Okay, I'm John Argo, and I'm a fourth-generation Norman resident, and I've been 45 years as a resident of Ward 2, and I've had a metalwork business in Ward 2 for 45 years. My wife and I have raised 3 children through the Norman Public Schools and OU while we lived there, and so Ward 2 is really it's special for me. Ward 2, if you don't know, is the gateway to Norman. We have 4 exits off of I-35. We have more businesses and than most towns in Oklahoma. So it's like a small city. So what we need to do is work with these businesses to keep them strong and better off, because they've been hurting the last couple of years, and the police problem has hurt some of the special ones that I've talked to, and I'd like to let everybody know that I'm committed to working with the businesses and the police for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Lauren Schuler.
Site for us to stay informed about local elections and candidates. I am so honored to be currently serving as the Ward 2 council member for the last 8 months, and during that time I have jumped feet first into working with the community. Serving on council has provided me with the knowledge and skills to navigate city policy and procedure, but this campaign has given me a special opportunity to invest in more directly with our residents. I've been out walking the neighborhoods each weekend, and if I haven't gotten to you yet, I'm coming. It has become clear to me through the doorstep interactions in Ward 2 that Ward 2 cares deeply about its neighborhoods, their walkability, the maintenance and upgrade of their infrastructure like sidewalks, roads, stormwater, electricity, and traffic calming and safety measures. These are all the things that I've taken.
Thank you. Our next, starting with Ward 4,
Yes,
will be Teresa Borum.
Hello, my name is Teresa Borum, as she already said, I'm sorry. I am running because Ward 4 hasn't had true representation in a very, very long time. Ward 4 has a huge number of small businesses. We have the most schools than any other ward. We have the new senior center is going to be going into our ward. And the only thing that the city, the mayor, and oftentimes many of the other candidates talk about is the homeless population. No other citizen is taken into account. It doesn't matter whether or not the children have to have a homeless shelter right next to their school. It doesn't matter if the senior center has to have a homeless shelter right next to the seniors. It doesn't matter if a homeless shelter is placed in close proximity to the. Is it time?
Sorry. Next will be Helen Grant for Ward 4. Helen? Helen Grant? Yes.
Hello. I'm Hannah Grant. I'm running for Ward 4. I live, work, play in Ward 4. I've been door knocking as well, and I've talked to people about homelessness and affordable housing, stormwater. All these issues are interconnected for me as somebody who lives in a place that floods and also needs affordable housing for folks that are wandering about. That's it.
Thank you. Next, Dwayne Harrison. Am I pronouncing your name quite correct, Dwayne? Don? Don. I'm sorry. Mr. Harrison, for Ward 4.
Joan, I think you're up.
How do I hear this?
Ms. Harrison.
He's on mute.
There. Let's start over.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks for hosting the forum tonight. I'm Dwayne Harrison. I'm a CPA and U.S. Army veteran, finance, and budget officer. For over 40 years, I've lived in Ward 4 and own a CPA firm in downtown Norman, which gives me a bird's eye view of the problems facing Ward 4. Our city council has taken us in the direction of empty storefronts, hostility to growth, frustrated developers, and hostility to our police officers. The growing homeless population is concentrated too close to our schools, neighborhoods, and businesses, and its criminal element has grown more violent with the recent shooting and murder downtown. We need a city council that welcomes growth and businesses with higher salaries. I'm also concerned that our NPD is understaffed, underfunded, and underpaid compared to similar communities. And as a CPA, I'm the only candidate with the financial expertise to understand how to wisely budget and prioritize the funds available.
Thank you. Before we go to our next one, we might remind you that you guys, to save some time when you hear your name called, if you would just unmute yourself, that would help us move along a little faster, please. Okay. Our next speaker is Gail Hobson for Ward 4.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, and thank you to the League certainly for hosting this, and to the citizens of Norman and Ward 4 for graciously listening to all of us tonight as we talk. I believe I bring the best options in terms of representing the Ward 4 voters. I am a longtime resident of Oklahoma, a five-generation family here in Oklahoma, as well as I'm a licensed psychologist, got all of my degrees here at OU, and private practice for 40 years. So I'm uniquely able to manage and know how to work with the homeless, with the police, in terms of making our streets safe and are dealing with issues that as they come up. And those are resolvable. Those issues are solvable. And we need to take a positive view. I've spent 8 years on my licensure board dealing with ethical issues, and that's important right now. And I certainly was a medical director at Mercy.
Thank you. Next, we have Ward 6, Elizabeth Foreman.
Hi, good evening, and thank you so much for hosting this. I'm thrilled to be here. 2 years ago, I was thrilled to be doing the same thing. That night 2 years ago was my first time to sit on the dais, and it's a thrill every time I sit on it now. I'm incredibly humbled and honored to have been serving the last year and a half of my Ward 6 constituents. I think I've created a great relationship with them, and I've earned their trust. And so I look forward to continuing that for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Also for Ward 6, Alexander Torby.
Am I on?
Yes.
Hello? Am
Yes.
I on? to tell the League of Women Voters, thank you for hosting this forum. It's greatly appreciated, and it's important that the residents get to see who they're going to be electing to represent them on city council. I'm a small business owner. I've been in the construction industry for over 30 years, and I have a vast amount of experience dealing with the permitting process and going through the different codes and whatnot. And there's things that we need to change, but I decided to run a few months ago after witnessing the defunding of our police department and seeing the condition that our police department is in our public safety. And over the last few months, I've got to visit with many of the Ward 6 residents, and I've heard there are many concerns about public safety, their job security here in Ward 6, and also the homeless and the transient issue. And I will work hard to listen and make sure these things get taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 8, Scott Dixon.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us tonight. My name is Scott Dixon. I'd like to share a little bit of my vision for Norman with you. I'm married, have 2 kids. My wife's an elementary school principal at Roosevelt Elementary here in Ward 8. My son's 11, my daughter's 8. One of the projects that I'm very passionate about, that I hear a lot about on people's doorstops, is the Norman Forward projects. I would love to see those completed properly. Love to see another round of bonds issued or voted on. I wasn't sitting on the council when those all failed, but I would like to be when they pass. And my kids are not superstar athletes. I just know that a lot of people are very passionate about kids' sports, and they spend a lot of money going out of town to tournaments. So I would love to see that happen in Norman.
Time.
Thank you. And our last opening statement will come from Matt Peacock in Ward 8.
Thanks for calling on me. I can't hear what's going on over there, so I'll just go ahead and start.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. My name is Matt Peacock. I'm a local architect, small business owner, and proud father of 3 great kids. I'm a sitting council member for Ward 8 and pride myself as somebody who really tries to see all sides of the coin representing an issue. As an independent voice for Ward 8, I will focus on the local issues that matter most without letting the partisan politics control the narrative. I'm here to build bridges that advance a positive vision for Norman, and I'm really just out to seek common ground in an effort to heal the divide that we see across the city. I'm a champion for smart growth, walkability, and the arts as economic drivers in our community, and I have a true passion for making Norman better so that the kids of today can have the opportunities of the future available.
Thank you. We will start with our first question. This question was sent to the candidates ahead of time. It comes from the league. The questions after this are questions that came from our members and from the people who are viewing our audience. During the past year, the city of Norman has experienced conflict over a variety of issues ranging from homelessness, mental health, policing, and urban development to the size of its citizens' water bills. How can the council address these conflicts and work with Norman citizens to resolve these issues? And we will start with Teresa, Ward 4.
I believe that we need to start working with the citizens and making sure that every vote is an informed vote. We need to allow citizens to take more part in the decision-making. We need to support our police. We need to allow the citizens to vote on whether or not we have city-run shelters. That's a great expense, and we do have a lot of great nonprofits. We can even invite some to come. And there are better places that we can put them so that we can have safer neighborhoods. And I think that there are a lot of great projects that we can do to bring more businesses here and clean up the codes so that we can have more job opportunity, so that people can thrive and have good income. I think we can get some good, is that it? Oh.
No, you have 5 minutes.
Huh? Okay.
Next, Helen Grant.
Helen, I think that's you.
Helen Grant is next.
I'm sorry, who's up?
Helen Grant. Is she on?
Who's the question for? Could the moderator type the answer in, please?
Helen Grant.
Hi. To answer the point, I do know that the police recently restructured. I do know that unarmed mental health crisis response is coming in the form of Norman caravans, which is to do street outreach. So if you see somebody sleeping in the street, you can literally call this service and it will do the outreach that the cops have said on record that they do not want to do. And actually to point out that what was said in another forum when someone said they didn't see the value of it, that the police didn't want to answer that. The value is in we're freeing them up to handle actual crime elsewhere. That's it.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison?
Yep, let me unmute. Okay. Yeah, it appears to me that the conflicts arise from competing priorities, limited resources in the city budget, and are aggravated by the increasingly hostile partisanship in the community and in the council. First, we need to recognize that we need to work together for the common good for the whole city and not to further our own political ambitions or agendas or financial benefits. Most city issues should be nonpartisan: fixing bridges and roads, public safety, water and sewer, and economic growth. So we should I think we should focus on economic growth, because unless tax revenue and average salaries grow, we can't afford to do the things necessary to keep Norman moving forward. We need to come to grips with the growing homeless population and don't ask Ward 4 to bear the entire burden for this. The people should vote on whether they want a big homeless housing project in their schools, neighborhoods, and business, as has been proposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gail Hobson?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's very important that we be sure we share accurate information and researched information. As I met with Chief Foster, he shared with me that actually the homeless population here in Norman has dropped on the street from 2019 to 2022 to lower numbers, actually about 175 on the street. However, he does point out that there's more violence there, so the police have more to deal with. That's why I'm uniquely positioned to be able to deal with that. I've been a psychologist for 40 years. I know how to run a continuum of care program. I did that at Mercy Hospital through the ER and ICU, and we've got to find ways that we take care of that 30% or so that are treatable, that are on the streets, and find ways for them to be housed, which is really the answer in the long run.
Thank you. Elizabeth Foreman?
Hello. So I think the question, if I'm correct, is how council can best address these issues. And I think the best thing that we can do is help lower the swords and help cool the temperature in the room. For the last year and a half, when I got elected, 2 weeks before I got elected, the police budget situation happened. And so I've been battered and bruised for the last year and a half. And it's very easy as a council member to feel very defensive, especially when so much of the public is very upset about many things, also not just police, but other things going on in the city. And they don't trust us to make the best decisions for them. So what we need to do is what we were elected to do, and to lead for all of our constituents by setting the tone, by talking to our constituents, having an open dialogue with city staff, connecting them to resources, and regaining that trust. And then I think that we're going to be able to go leaps and bounds beyond where we are now.
Thank you. Alexander Torvey?
I believe the best way to address these issues is to listen to our constituents and their concerns, find common ground on solutions that will ensure the safety of our community and strengthen our local businesses and business community. Our local churches and nonprofits are best equipped to mitigate the homeless issue. Norman residents voted twice for the PSST to hire needed officers that were short August 25th, 2020, we voted down building a $4 million homeless facility. The best way to address and resolve these issues is for our elected officials to follow the will of their constituents. That's why I'm running. Many Ward 6 residents do not feel they are being listened to. I will work to ensure that every resident is heard.
Thank you. Scott Dixon?
Excuse me. I believe that most issues can be solved with prior proper planning and clear, effective communication. When those happen, things just go smooth. Kind of like with the warming shelter downtown. There wasn't a plan in place to how to address what happens to the unhoused residents whenever they have to move out every morning and have nowhere to go during the day. It's going to cause conflict with the downtown area. Mental health is going to have to be a collaboration with the county and the state. The city just does not have the resources to tackle it. You know, policing, it can be reimagined, but not in one lengthy council meeting. You know, that budget was worked on for 9 months, and one meeting just kind of went haywire. We need to have a plan in place before we move funds from an established program to a new proposed program. And it's my understanding that the water bills are because the water bills have been estimated.
Thank you. Matt Peacock?
Yeah, so I strongly believe that we're all at our best when we work in this spirit of collaboration and not competition. You know, if anyone wants to see true systemic change at any level, then everybody needs to come to the table and everybody needs to have a voice at the table, which unfortunately rarely happens in today's political landscape. We're never going to go anywhere as long as we're just focusing on winners and losers instead of everyone pulling on the same rope in the same direction. So I, for one, embrace that challenge, and I'm willing to have those hard conversations to find the creative solutions that will help move this city forward.
Thank you. John Argo?
I've been working with people in Norman for 45 years with my metalwork business, and I've never gone up to anybody's house and introduced politics. They call me with a problem, and we go fix it together, and I think that's the only way you're going to do this and be successful. If you don't involve politics, it allows you to move forward with other things. If I've got Norman residents and business owners who support me that are supporting 3 different mayoral candidates, and nobody else can say that. And so I can pull somebody together, and they know how I feel about the police and the business as a starting point, and they'll both agree with me on that, and I'll try to get them to agree on something else. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to say, this is a starting point that allows us to agree and go forward. Otherwise, you won't get anything done. People will just be mad at each other like they are now, and we'll just be a stalemate for the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Sure, I guess I will try to tie this all up in a little bow here at the end. I think that one of the things that I have been hearing so much from our residents concerning all issues of Norman is how they don't feel addressed in the process. And then I think that communication really is the key to allowing citizens to feel like they are, invested and heard. And that, I think, comes with how we lay out public comment, how we lay out people being invested in the budget process over the 9 months, year that we're working on budgets, and being able to include citizens in some of those processes. And that's something that I really want to work on as I continue on council.
Thank you. We'll move now to questions from our audience. Our next question is, are you in favor of a separate stormwater utility? Why or why not? And if not, where would the money come from to address the city's stormwater problems? And we will start with Elizabeth Foreman.
Can't hear.
I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, let me try it again.
I'm up. Hey. Okay. So
Are
am I in favor of stormwater utility?
Stormwater utility, if not, where would the money come from to address the city's stormwater problems?
So, okay, yes, I am in favor of stormwater utility. Absolutely. Clean drinking water should be a priority for every Norman resident. I know that people aren't a big fan of rate increases, and I understand that. My role as a council member is to ensure that those rates are fair and equally distributed. The way that it's presented now, it's based on a tier schedule. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think it puts the most burden on the Norman residents. I would like to see that more distributed between developers and between the residents. But yes, overall, I am in favor of that. It is absolutely necessary. I would encourage anyone to reach out to the city, to Chris Mattingly. He can give you a tour of the water treatment plants and talk to you all day about the necessity of it. And we will be voting on that actually in April. So vote yes.
Alexander Torby?
I think you're up, Alex.
Muted.
Did you call my name?
Alexander,
I
yeah.
can't hear the
Alex-
audio from the moderator.
Alexander Torby. We're going by ward in order, so next one would be Alexander Torby.
Okay, I'm going to assume I heard my name there. Originally, I was not in favor of the stormwater utility in the way that it was presented to the residents and the way that the residents were going to be unfairly charged, particularly out in Ward 5. I think it would be much better if the stormwater utility were just a flat fee for every resident, say maybe $5. Maybe we should look at some of the surrounding cities on how they implement their stormwater utility fee.
Thank you. Scott Dixon?
Yeah, so the stormwater utility fee, I think, is a little tricky for Ward 8. Most of Ward 8 are kind of newer developments, and we've kind of paid for our fix. It's not saying we don't want to chip in a little bit more to help the greater good. We do. Ward 8 looks like it's going to inherit a lot of Ward 3's rural. I would love to see an agriculture zone stuff. I would love to see an exemption there. They don't need to pay for stormwater runoff from a barn when it's going to go onto 40 acres worth of land. I would love to see like that kind of carved out for them. But the people in Ward 8 don't mind stepping up. We just don't want to. Well, we just want it to be equitable, but we'll do our fair share. Is what I believe Ward 8 wants to do. So we have to do something. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. Let's not let perfection be the enemy of great. So let's come up with something.
Thank you. Matt Peacock?
Yeah, so I do support a stormwater utility, but I actually believe the best approach would be to bond stormwater projects, much like we currently do with roadway projects. I think this ideally would be in combination with a stormwater utility. So, that utility itself would focus on stormwater infrastructure maintenance while the bond projects actually fund the capital side of it. So with both tools operating in Norman, I think the reliance on each one individually becomes less of a necessity, and therefore it becomes much more palatable to voters. I think in the absence of either of these, though, another option would be to do a series of special assessment districts, which would function like smaller, more targeted bond issues. These would still require some public buy-in, but the impacted areas would be much more defined and precise in order to remedy the most critical infrastructure needs. And that could help resolve the division between urban and rural obligations. I also think we need to approach stormwater on a policy level, such as eliminating mandatory parking minimums, much like the council recently completed.
Thank you. John?
As far as the stormwater goes and the freshwater rate increases, to me, you've got to communicate with the people. They know when they go to the pump, the gas is going to cost more. And so you need to communicate and let them know the options. You either have water or you don't. So if it's costing the city more, it's going to have to cost us more, or you just don't have water. So that said, the stormwater, we have our own Ward 2, we have Normandy Creek and Emhoff Creek coming through there. So we're responsible for some of, it's been there forever. It's ever since we built there. So you've got to deal with how you pay for it. I think I think everybody uses our streets and roads and everything because we have 2 middle schools there. So I think sharing it citywide would be my best solution to solve the problem.
Okay. Lauren Schuler?
Yes, I am in favor of having a stormwater utility. I think that it is one of the most critical needs that we need to address in the city, and the one that we so far have not been able to find a solution to. We have a backlog of so many stormwater projects in our stormwater master plan. We have a great plan, but we don't have the money to fund the projects. And I think that, some solutions have been given for a path forward for that. But I do believe that this is one of the most critical things facing our city, not only for the center city, but also for our rural residents as well. And so I think that as a city, we need to come together to figure out what the best mechanism to do this is.
Thank you. Teresa Borum?
Unless you go in there and actually have been able to look at all the finances and understand where the money's going, where things can be redistributed, and where waste can be gotten rid of, it's hard for me to answer with specifics as to whether or not this should be a utility or if we should go with a bond. But I actually would think that if it is needed, that we should go with a utility. I think we ought to consider the fact that we do have a lot of residents that have wells and live out in an area where they feel it's unfair that they have to be paying for it, or they have additional things that they're already paying for. So I think that perhaps it should be, I think we all use the city, we all use the city streets, we all have to worry about if we're in town and it's flooding, so we have to all chip in. But maybe it also have.
Thank you. Helen Grant?
Hi. Yes, I am for funding stormwater infrastructure. I am also for building equity into that and listening to the residents in rural and core Norman, and also figuring out development plans moving forward, because I know that, yes, we need to address stormwater, but also how we build in the future matters. And that's it.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison?
Yes, I'm in favor of it. A recent Norman Transcript article said that Bishop Creek, which is in Ward 3, is subject to $11.9 million to be spent for improvements in the city stormwater master plan. That's just too big a bite to take at one time. And as others have said, I'm in favor of funding smaller projects as we go, as funds are available, and avoid the need for a big up or down bond issue on something that big.
Thank you. Gail, Hobson?
Yes, I am in favor of that. And but what we all know as citizens, if we've lived here and worked with the city for a while, is that we've tried bond issues twice and they have failed. And we've also, and there's some solutions for that down the road, which have to do with hopefully better sales tax, plus more federal money, which the federal money is coming in. But you know what, I'm going to go a little different direction, because what really matters here is the citizens have to trust their city council. And right now, unfortunately, we have one candidate, Mr. Harrison, who has shown himself not to be trustworthy, because he has recently taken from me and from the post office and from that person that owned the home, my mailer, and put his own in. Well, we cannot allow that sort of action to occur and those people to represent a city of this size. We have to have trust, and we have to show that we're trustworthy as candidates.
Thank you. Our next question. The City of Norman has committed to the goal of transitioning to 100% renewable energy. Do you support that commitment? If so, why? And if not, why not? And we will start with Scott Dixon.
Could you type out the question, please?
Is it up there?
Okay, so I'm not in favor of that because it's just a way to pay higher rates for nothing. At nighttime, when the wind's not blowing, the electricity coming through the lines to your house is from coal or natural gas. So to say we're transitioning to 100% renewable energy, it's not accurate to say that. It's just a way to raise rates. It's just going to cost us more money is all it's going to do. Because they don't have separate transmission lines for renewable energy and coal and natural gas. It's just not possible. So for that reason, I don't support it.
Thank you. Matt Peacock?
So, yeah, as a graduate of the Nature Conservancy's Leadership Academy, this subject's actually pretty close and near and dear to my heart. So I absolutely think that we need to start transitioning ourselves from fossil fuels and start looking at other renewable energies. I think Norman, as we look to be a leader towards the future, and we want to join other big league cities in making this commitment, we need to be getting with the program before we get left behind.
Thank you. John Argo?
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
Sure. Where am I? The city of Norman has committed to the goal of transitioning to 100% renewable energy. Do you support that commitment? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, I answered this question, and part of the problem is how do you transition to that? Because if you're relying on like the electricity, it's generated off of other fuels, and so I'd be wanting to be able to transition to something and still have a backup in case that other got too expensive. And I don't think, when I answered the question, I said, if you're going to do like electric vehicle or this or batteries or something, where is all of this coming from, and what are the costs, and what is the replacement cost? So I'd have to weigh it all, and if it doesn't work, then I think we need to be careful what we get into here and make promises we can't keep, because if you can't run the city vehicles at a reasonable rate, then we're going to be raising rates for people on all kinds of stuff. So in the pumps for our generating the water we drink, and everything we do relies on energy. So you've got to be careful.
Thank you. Lauren Schuler?
Yes, I am in support of transitioning to renewable energy. I think that with a sustainable, concerted plan over a number of years, we can do this in a sufficient and replicable way. And as some of the previous speakers have said, we don't want to get left behind. This is the way of the future. This is something that we can do in an incremental stage to continue to move forward with, wind and solar and things that we have available to us in Oklahoma. And I think that as a city, we need to really double down on this and move forward, especially after the ice storm of last year and seeing what happens with coal and fossil fuels and the rates that have been jacked up that we're going to be paying for on the back end of that coming up pretty shortly here.
Thank you. Helen Grant? No, I'm sorry, Teresa Borum. God,
Hi, yeah.
my alphabet there.
Energy and switching to that. In fact, as a board member of Resonator, I had actually pushed the other board to adopt the Ready for 100 Norman. To that point, when my previous life as a journalist, I remember covering people using solar-powered lights for park improvement projects. And, that's the direction we should be moving. And I would love to talk to the people in our communities about how we could invest in that kind of things for their street lights. And I'm for it. That's it.
Thank you. Teresa Borum.
I think we've seen in other cities and other states where severe weather events are, they can create tragedies when there's not enough power if you're depending solely on those sources. On top of that, the batteries, the wind blades, they all come from other countries. Until we can start manufacturing them in America or come up with an alternative source, I think it would be impossible for us to do this without endangering our economy. For one thing, all the batteries come from China, and if we're storing everything on batteries, and if our vehicles are all run on batteries, and what happens if relationships with China go south? We have to make sure that we get back to where doing it, we're self-sustainable, and when we do that, then I think it would be more likely that we.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison.
Yes, I am generally in favor of moving toward renewables. However, I put on my finance hat and I would like to see the economics of what can Norman afford to do and over a long period of time. So generally, it may mean phasing out vehicles as they are replaced. Is it prudent and economical to replace those with something more environmentally friendly? So absolutely move in that direction. But let's see what Norman can afford and whether it makes sense.
Thank you. Gail, Hobson.
Yes, I am absolutely looking forward to working with the young people in Norman. I hear from them as I walk the streets out and around the university, and they're so bright and they're so capable and they're just excited about the future. And they want to look to the leadership of the city council and the leaders here to help them listen to them, which is just essential. And we have the university here in Norman. We're so fortunate. We can collaborate with the university, with those bright young people coming up who are researching and find new directions. We need to take positive, smart, financially careful decisions as we go forward on those directions.
Thank you. Elizabeth Foreman.
Okay, I was taking some notes when everyone was talking, and I'm absolutely in favor of this. Think back to 2020 when the world shut down and how our space station was able to see things on Earth that they hadn't seen in years. So think about the less fossil fuel greenhouse emissions. I think that's incredibly important. I think it's incredibly smart for us to diversify our resources and dependence on fossil fuels. That'll also protect us against price gouging as well. And it also adds an economic development factor. It would create manufacturing jobs, installation, stuff like that. And so I think it would be really good to boost our economy as well.
Thank you. Alexander Torvey.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Thumbs up. As a former Boy Scout, caring about the environment and being a conservationist is important to me. But you really have to look at the cost of what we're talking about as far as renewable energy, the exorbitant costs there is on per se like car batteries and things like that. Right now, I don't believe we have the technology, not in our lifetime, to actually make these things where we're not depending on fossil fuels. So I would be in favor of it if it was cost effective and we had the technology now to do it, but we just don't.
Thank you. Next question. Homelessness continues to present multiple problems for our community. Do you support the creation of homeless shelters by the city, and how should these be funded and maintained? And we'll begin with John Argo.
Well, I've been talking with a lot of people about this, and there's a lot of division. The problem I've got is that you need to save some of that money rather than push it all over the homeless if we have money. I've got a buddy on Lindsay Street that's operated a business for 30 years and it's an automotive shop, never had a car stolen from his business in 30 years. And then he turned around and last year had 4 cars stolen. He said they're backing up to his door on camera and stealing catalytic converters. He's had to hire a $50,000 a year person to guard his business so he can just stay open. And then he's got 12 families that he supports out of this business and 3 generations of his business, family in that business, and he's mad. We need to fund that $50,000 to put that guy back. We can't be driving people out of business that have done so much for Norman, and everybody uses this guy. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Everybody likes this guy and uses him. We need to help him. Thank you.
Lauren Schuler?
Yes, I think that everybody running on the ward side and on the mayor's side does agree that homelessness is an issue that we definitely need to address in our community. I think that we all have different solutions to what that looks like. And I think that the city, in terms of homeless shelters, I think that it is critical. We have a critical need based on our gaps analysis study for a low barrier shelter. Now, does that mean that the city owns and fully operates that shelter? I don't think that that is necessarily the approach, but we can operate and we can own a building and then have a public-private partnership for an operator for our homeless shelter, which I do think that we need and I am in support of. And so I think that we can go in terms of funding. The city can maintain it as a resource, as a building like we do in other capacities for other things.
Teresa Borum?
I have 2 petitions out that'll answer this question. The first petition states that we as Norman citizens should be allowed to vote on whether or not we fund city-run shelters or continue to work with nonprofits. And the second one states that if we do, as a community, decide to have city-run shelters, no shelters can be placed within a half a mile of schools, daycares, or parks. No matter what we do, we have to protect our citizens. You shouldn't be hurting people to help people.
Thank you. Helen Grant?
Yes. Okay. So, homelessness. How should these be funded and maintained? Well, I'm going to point back to the home-based homelessness gap study. And it says opportunities for safe and affordable housing. When Councilmember Brandy Studley is mad about encampments being cleared, it's because she knows that there's not a place for these people to land. Then we need low barrier housing and day services, supportive services, transportation to employment services and shelter, coordinated prevention assistance, robust data collection and analysis, coordination and communication to ensure effective use of limited resources. So how can we fund this? We should be talking to the community. When we had those bonds in 2020, the homeless shelter was actually the most popular item on that ticket and failed very narrowly compared to the other votes. So I think if we work with the community more and take in resident concerns, we could probably come up with a shelter in the community.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison?
Yeah, like the movie line says, Houston, we have a problem. You don't need to read the home-based report to know we have a big problem. Just drive down Porter or Main Street or Reed Avenue, see the piled up shopping carts and everything else. So regarding the proposal in the transcript, January 19th, for the shelter on Griffin Hospital land near Main and Reed Avenue, I would ask these questions. Do we want this so near schools, neighborhoods that have already seen property values decline, and businesses? There are plenty of open land around Norman, away from all of these areas that would work. Second question, why should Ward 4 bear the entire burden for this problem? Should it be shared by the entire city? Next question, will this become a homeless housing project with all the problems that go along with it? What is the long-term cost to the city? How much debt will be incurred? And who will pay for it, as well as the ongoing maintenance?
I'm sorry. Gail?
Yes, ma'am. I have been so pleased to be supported by, in my campaign, Gene McCowan, who's, as we know, is an active man here in Norman who has put his dollars into solving this problem. He's concerned, he's looked at the research with me and with April Heipel to figure out how we develop a continuum of care program, which is what I developed and had at Mercy. And we reduced the homeless population in the ERs and ICUs by 30 to 35%. That can be done in Norman as well. And when we do that, then you get those people up in a small home, that's where the research goes, with a social worker and a financial advice, and then they make smarter decisions. Then you go to the tougher ones that are in that top 10%, that yes, we'll have to find some answers for that top 10% of homeless that are out there, but we can, if we solve 30, 35, 40% of the problem, we would see, like we did at Mercy Hospital, a huge difference in how things.
Thank you. Elizabeth Foreman?
Yeah, so a very popular response to this question is, well, the city voted down building a homeless shelter. It was one that didn't pass, but got the most votes. But in that same election, we also voted against an EOC for the police department. And I would say public safety is a very big issue that people care about. So even though the homeless shelter didn't pass, it doesn't mean that it's not a big issue that people care about. And so I think that, like Councilmember Schuler said, a private-public partnership is the best way to go. I think that we as a city need to take the lead, and we need to create a space where all of our partners in care can come together to help get resources to our unhoused friends. But I don't think it should be borne on the shoulders of just Norman. I think the county needs to be involved. We have a lot of Moore and Noble unhoused friends, and some from Oklahoma City that's still in Cleveland County. I think they need to be involved also, and we all need to work together to really tackle this head on.
Thank you. Alexander Torvey?
I think the thing that we need to remember is that the will of the voters, they did vote this down back in 2020, and we really need to respect what their wishes are. But at the same time, we do need to understand that this is a very serious issue, and we need to remember, we need to keep that there's two issues here. There are homeless people, and then there are the transients, and we need to help the helpless. But I think it would be more humane to connect these people back with their families and where they're from, so they can start rebuilding the relationships with their family and go from there. So,
Thank you. Scott Dixon?
Yeah, so not an easy solution. Most everybody's kind of hit on various solutions that I think most everybody in town would agree with. I love the idea of what Mr. McCowan is proposing. I'd love to see what it's going to cost the city long term. You know, if we build 70 of these affordable homes, whatever, 100, you give me a number. You know, does that attract more homeless people to Norman, or does it just serve the ones that we currently have? I like to look at it. I mean, I think we definitely have to treat them with empathy, respect. And, I mean, these people need help. It'd be great to partner with the county. The county's got a lot more money than the city does, and the state as well. So I've got no answers, but I'm really looking forward to tackling and sitting in a room with everybody and coming up with.
Thank you. Matt Peacock?
Yeah, so, first, I think we need to have a 24-hour shelter, because kicking people out onto the streets in the morning and asking them to fill the day without a place to go it's hard for everybody. So that's step number one. I think that shelter needs to have increased safety and security measures, especially after what we saw the other night. That's something that should never have happened. And ideally, this facility wouldn't be located in the central business district, so as to not burden downtown businesses, but still be close enough for people to access the services in that area, which is one of the real challenges of this issue. So most importantly, I think all this highlights what we need to get them into a stable housing plan with quick long-term housing. I subscribe to the housing first model, which states that the most basic need of housing has to be met first before a person is able to focus on any kind of mental health, physical health, substance abuse issues. And, it's no secret that homelessness is usually a byproduct of one of these other things. And this means that our homeless shelter probably needs to be very low barrier, if not no barrier.
Thank you. Okay, for this next question, this question is ward-specific, so when it comes your turn as a ward, answer it within the context of your ward number, if you would, please. I hope that's clear. So we'll start with Ward 4, and we'll start with Teresa. List 3 Ward 4 specific concerns and possible ways you would address them.
Ward 4, obviously, the mayor and the city council has decided that the entire homeless population needs to be within Ward 4. And they have decided that because the services for the homeless are in Ward 4. I think that we can find other places that will not further burden Ward 4. Ward 4 already has shelters. It's a citywide issue. We should be dealing with it as a city. If we want shelters, there are better locations, and services can be relocated. There's also transportation that can be given to individuals to get them to the services they need. Then we have to deal with the crime, and we have to deal with our businesses, helping the small businesses to thrive and the main street to thrive so that it's a place you want to hang out, and we are inviting more people. We need the safety. We need our police refunded. We need to make.
Thank you. Helen Grant?
Yes. 3 concerns of my ward and how I would address them. I would say concerns in my ward center on homelessness and services, land development and zoning, and stormwater. And how would I address them? With homelessness, I want to talk to the community. I actually live in First Courthouse District, which is on Porter and Main, and gets a lot of that foot traffic, and I understand the concerns of my neighbors. I have had homeless people living in a shed behind my backyard. I get it. But we need to have an honest conversation as a community, what we want to see in response to that. And then when we talk about stormwater, we need to talk also about development in our ward, because if we're building things like mini dorms that flood our neighbors, that's not okay. And then also, when we're building in our neighborhoods, are we keeping in with the character of the neighborhood? That is greatly about.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison? Dwayne Harrison?
Yeah, I would put economic growth as a top concern for Ward 4. We see a lot of empty storefronts and businesses in downtown. In Campus Corner, we've lost businesses that would have increased the tax revenue and brought higher salaries to Norman. Second, of course, we've talked about the homeless population, so its particular impact on Ward 4. I agree that if the people have voted not to build a shelter, I see no reason to move ahead with something as if it's going to happen, whether the people wanted it or not. And I just think that overall, focus on growth of tax revenue for Norman as a whole. Unlike Ms. Hobson, who because we don't have enough sales tax, she wants to be dependent on federal resources. That's spoken like a true specialist, a socialist, instead of looking to growing the economy and growing the tax base.
Gail Hobson?
Well, I'd like to respond to that. I am not a socialist. I believe in our democracy all the way. And I do think, though, that there are ways to deal with this issue in our community of homelessness, which many of the homeless, of course, are mentally ill, and we know that. That's not hard to figure out in the studies. And so we need to find a balance of funding the police. The police need to be there at times, and they need to be strongly funded and present, but also have a crisis team. I know how to do that. I've set that up for a number of years at Mercy. We can do that here in Norman and treat people fairly, but get them in a place where they're not harming our streets and businesses, because the businesses are affected. And so I think that's the most important issue. We want to look at stormwater, of course, in our ward. That's important. We want to be progressive. And I think infrastructure is a really important issue because we all live on these streets and in our parks. I have talked to Jason at length about the parks. We know we got the senior center.
Elizabeth Foreman, we're going to start now. This is Ward 6. 3 ward-specific concerns and ways you would address them. Elizabeth?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said a different question. So the top 3 things that I deal with whenever I talk to my constituents is the number 1 is homelessness. Usually in Sutton Wilderness, because that's where a lot of Ward 6 people go. It's a little hidden gem. It's technically Councilmember Peacock's, but I think I'm going to get it with the reapportionment. And people are very concerned. They take their family there and they're scared. Just yesterday, I had a Facebook message exchange with a constituent about putting in a crosswalk to get there and then maybe some sidewalks for people in one of my neighborhoods who want to get to Sutton Wilderness. So sidewalks is also a very hot topic in Ward 6 because they're so patchy and sporadic. Is that time?
Keep going.
Okay, I don't know. This is fun. Okay. And then the last big concern is that my ward grew the largest in population. So right now we're the biggest, yay, Ward 6, but it's all residential. And people are very concerned that if we move our ward boundaries and we go out east, that we're just going to continue to be residential and not business. We would like to see more business.
Alexander Torby.
Okay. The top 3 issues that I'm hearing from constituents here in Norman and also by survey is they're very, very concerned about the police funding and the lack of presence of officers. We're down to 147 available officers. It is very important to the residents in Ward 6 that the police department is refunded and fully funded to be able to handle the safety issues that we have here in Ward 6. The second most important thing is economic growth, security, and opportunity for the residents, not just here in Ward 6, but in all of Norman. Residents, they want to be able to have good paying jobs here in Norman so they can stay here in Norman during the day. They don't have to go to the other parts of the metro area when their kids graduate from OU or they graduate from high school. They want them to have jobs here in Norman so they can raise their families, raise their grandchildren here, and continue their family legacy here.
Thank you. Thank you. Scott Dixon. We're going to start. This is Ward 8.
All right, the top 3 things that people are talking to me about, safety. They want to feel safe in town. They want their kids to be safe in the neighborhoods. That also kind of goes hand in hand with another one, the homeless issue. Sutton Place, the people I've talked to or talked to me, they can't let their kids just ride bikes due to the transients that are in the woods at Sutton Wilderness and the Sutton Place neighborhood. And the third thing that everyone is talking to me about, they want to see good jobs and economic growth. People in Norman are generous. Like they would like to fund a lot of these projects, but we can't do that without economic growth. And so a lot of people that I'm talking to are very concerned about that and just, would love to find a way to make it happen and to pay for all these projects that they're badly needed.
Matt Peacock.
First would be, creating a pro-business city, plenty of career opportunities for people's kids. That's the thing I get the most. Secondly, would be addressing the unhoused crisis, not only in Ward 8, but across the city, as many people have touched on already. But, thirdly, would be getting voter-approved projects fully funded and built so that Norman can start to see the benefits of some of these quality of life initiatives. I really think that is going to bring in a lot of outside tax revenue and a lot of outside interest, and it's really going to help us fund things like roads, bridges, police, fire, all the essential city services that come from collecting sales taxes. So that's vastly important, if you ask me.
Thank you. John Argo for Ward 2.
This is important to me because the people where I deal with want to feel safe where they live, they want to feel safe where they work, and they want their kids to feel safe when they're in their schools. And the only way you can accomplish that is working with the police rather than against them. And I promised for the next 2 years to work with the police rather than against them. The second one, I'm just going to shout out to my friends that have the power go out every time the wind blows. I'll try to fix that for you, but I don't have all the answers right now. The third one, we've got a real traffic problem around Whittier School at certain times of day when they drop students off, when they pick them up, and it's so bad. I was just talking to Teresa, they have to reroute the city bus to get around there, and you're going to get somebody hurt down there on 24th because they got cars going by 40 miles an hour with people stopped. And it needs to be fixed. I want to bus the kids off-site, whether it's school buses or city bus, get them off like they do my grandkids in Tulsa, and fix this problem, get it over with. Otherwise, we're going to live with it forever.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, the three issues that come up a lot for me, one being stormwater. I think that's, as we've heard multiple times, a citywide issue, but also infrastructure. Things like our tree canopy and overhead power lines, and understanding that in the older part of our city in Ward 2 and Ward 4, that those power lines go down a lot, and we have people that are out of electricity a lot in Ward 2. So addressing that with our power companies in terms of tree trimming, and then also our business districts on Lindsay Street, West Lindsay Street, Main, and then 24th Avenue Southwest. And thinking about how do we continue to reinvest and revitalize those districts as the pandemic has hit us hard, and looking at the difference between retail and how that has shaped and is changing after the pandemic.
Thank you. This is going to be our last question because we're getting close to our wrap-up time. I'm going to take the last two questions that we have here from the community and kind of combine them. I hope that I can state it in a way that makes some sense. You've talked about safety. You've talked about safety issues and concerns for your constituents. How would you work with Norman Police to stop things like the many car break-ins that we're experiencing in the community, and issues like safety at the warming centers with homelessness, or with the homeless and other people? And we're going to start with Ward 6, Elizabeth Foreman.
Hold on just a second, I couldn't hear you, so I'm reading the question here.
That's fine.
Okay, so the safety at the warming shelter should be number one priority. This is something that I've talked to the city manager about. I know that we use a private security company. When I worked at the police department, I would do police contracts for off-duty work. And so my preference would be for an off-duty officer or officers, if needed, to do the security, and instead of a security guard. That would be my preference. As far as the car break-ins and stuff goes, I know a lot of the areas, when people send me emails and they talk about it, they also note that there's not a lot of good street lighting, and so they feel that their areas are more targeted in those areas. So I think the city should maybe look at that. And then in those areas, we need more patrol. And I know that we've had some issues with shifting police around, but we do need more patrol units, and we do need to fund that to make sure that those areas are seen, they're visible.
Thank you. Okay. Alexander Torvey. You're muted.
Okay, thanks. The police department has shut down their traffic division and moved what officers they do have to patrol. And this is a question that I've received from people messaging me through my campaign webpage. They're concerned about the lack of presence of officers on the street, and this is why. And this is a result of the defunding of the police department and the terrible treatment of the police department. We've paid for these officers to get the staff levels up to where they need to be, and we have not hired these officers. And this is something that is very important that Elizabeth is finally admitted to, that we are short of these officers on patrol, and that would go a long way to help curbing what we're seeing on the street, that lack of presence of the officers on the street.
Thank you. Scott Dixon?
Yeah, so, it's not that safe. I mean, it has been up until, the shootings the other night. Talked to some police officer friends about it. They said it was just a matter of time. There's not enough. You know, sometimes over on the west side of Norman, we might not have a patrol officer. I have a police officer on west of I-35 for a few hours. You know, I believe most of the people here on the council had an opportunity to, in two separate votes, put the 800 back into the police department's budget and the 65 back into, and that did not pass. It's also my understanding that that money was also spent on overtime to pay the few officers we still have left. We just got to support the police. They don't get everything they want.
Thank you.
Man, we got to make them feel good.
Thank you. Matt Peacock?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for people to cast blame, but I'm not hearing a lot of solutions coming up. But I personally, I favor more neighborhood engagement and outreach, such as the concept of Peacock. You know, someone who's out there making those relationships every single day, really getting to know the people on the street, the same people every day. You know, what's required to be more proactive on safety and not just simply reactionary. I favor more robust partnerships like that of the Neighborhood Alliance, which helps residents become better engaged, stronger citizens with the police department. This would increase the number of eyes on the street, which is really the benchmark for making any neighborhood safer. I think people that care about their neighborhood and are vested in their neighborhood are willing to do what it takes to keep it safe.
Thank you. John Argo?
If I'm elected, Ward 2 will set the example of what it's like to work with the Norman police and keep our group safe. I met with the FOP the other night, and they can only get 5 recruits to show up that want to work in Norman, and they gave me a clapping ovation when I left there. Now that's aside. If on the as far as the homeless, I'm a metalwork guy, and go Google homes made out of shipping containers and see how nice they're working with them. We could take those shipping containers and put together a little homeless village or whatever you want to do and put it on land so you can move it later to somewhere else if the land becomes more valuable, and it'd be quick to put up, and we could probably get one put up before they could draw plans on anything else. So let's quit talking about it and fix this problem and fix it economically and get the businesses involved, contractors involved. I'll come work on them. You know what I mean? So get everybody involved, and let's just quit talking about it and fix it and get it over with. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Schuler?
When it comes to public safety, I think that this is a really integral issue in our community. And I think that what we keep hearing as a buzzword is fully fund our police. And I think what does that mean is the question that I have. Do we know what that means? How many officers do we really need? And I think I'm really in favor of looking at a comprehensive study to say, what is the right number of police that we need on our street? What is the right number to fully cover patrol and traffic and the things that we need to address? But also, I'm definitely in favor of things that Councilmember Peacock was talking about. This community policing approach and getting in with the neighborhoods and making it really a community feel and working side by side and hand in hand. But also thinking about alternatives that we can also pivot to that when appropriate. So it's not just about.
Thank you. Teresa Borum?
If people had looked at what had happened in other cities, they would have known exactly what was going to happen when the police was defunded. It wasn't rocket science. As of now, we don't have enough officers, period. So there's no getting more police onto the street to keep people safer until we get better funding, get police hired on, but that's an extremely long process. It's not going to happen overnight. It could take a year. So in the meantime, to keep us safer, we need to be thinking of moving the homeless community or the homeless shelter, the nighttime one, to an area that's not in a residential and a business area. We need to move it further out so that, because with homelessness comes a lot of crime. So we would be reducing crime. We would also be helping with our police because it's they won't have to be going from call to call.
Thank you. Helen Grant?
Hi, yes. So, safety and working with the police. I'm going to revert back to unarmed mental health crisis response because that frees up the police to handle situations in the neighborhood that I actually was door knocking in off of Lahoma and Cruz. And I was hearing from residents that the speeding at night and during the day when there's not somebody, sat there like a police car patrolling, is very dangerous. And I was actually knocking doors kind of late at night because it was taking me a while to get through the list. And I witnessed cars more than once speeding very dangerously on a very not well-lit street and could easily hit a student or a bicyclist. And so when we talk about public safety, it's like, where do we put our resources? Do they need to be with somebody who just needs to be taken to a shelter? No, that could be somebody else's response, and the police could be handling other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison?
Yeah, I think you've got to start with fully funding and staffing the police. This isn't a buzzword. There are ways to measure whether our police are fully funded and staffed or not. I just noticed recently the Chamber of Commerce came out in support of getting the police up to the level that it should be. And this is not a number pulled out of the air. This is based on similar communities, officers per 1,000. We should have between 201 and 207 officers compared to only 171 now. Meanwhile, violent crime and serious property crimes are up 12% from 1920 to 2021. So start with an adequate force and then deal with the specifics of safety around the homeless shelter. I still think that shelter needs to be moved away from downtown and away from schools and away from
Thank you. Gail Hobson?
Yes, the answer here is relatively straightforward but not easy. And that's a collaborative effort with the police and with other community partners, a compromise, and most of all, maturity. And that has to start with not being name-calling, Mr. Harrison, because that does not do anything to help our community or for us to work together here. So I would solve your own problems here that may be legal and fairly seriously legal and not be name-calling others. We need to work together. We need to build trust, and then we will have solutions. I've seen that by talking to Jean McCowan. I've seen that by talking to April Heipel and working with other professionals. This can be done, have a safer community.
Thank you. We've reached the time now for closing arguments. Each candidate will have 1 minute to speak in closing, and we're going to go backwards from the way we started this evening. So Matt Peacock, you are first.
Thank you. As an independent voice for Ward 8, I'm going to focus on the local issues that matter most. As a small business owner, I'm a champion for local pro-business initiatives with the goal of lowering barrier of entry to all Normanites. As an architect and passionate urbanist, I will continue to work to make Norman's built environment more pedestrian-friendly, healthy, and vibrant while utilizing responsible and sustainable development practices and a focus on historic preservation. As a graduate of such programs as the Citizens Police Academy, the Nature Conservancy's Leadership Academy, Leadership Norman, Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma, and also having served on a dozen nonprofit boards and has pledged this for the entire benefit of the entire community. What Norman truly needs right now is stability on the council, and I am the only Ward 8 candidate that can offer this.
Thank you. Scott Dixon?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be an advocate for Ward 8. We're gonna have monthly town halls to communicate with all of the Ward 8 residents. We're gonna focus on Ward 8. We're gonna let the other wards they have their own counselors. They don't need an extra. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna roll my sleeves up. I'm gonna work with everybody on the council, the mayor, city manager, city staff. It's gonna be great. It sounds like a vote for Matt is a vote for Abria. Wants stability and no change, then that's what you're going for. Thank you.
Alexander Torvey?
Yes. My message to the Ward 6 residents is I've heard your issues, the issues that are important to you. I hear that you are concerned about public safety and you want the police department fully funded and you want our officers treated respectfully and to be compensated for the hard work that they do. I hear that you are concerned about the economic growth and stability in the city, and I believe I have the experience of many, many years to be able to make better business-based decisions. And I also hear you that you are tired of the rubber stamp position that our current council member has done for Mayor Bria Clark's agenda for the city. February 8th, vote for change, vote for me, Alex Torvey. I will be your voice.
Thank you. Elizabeth Foreman?
So one thing I love more than anything is that before Councilmember Kelly Lynn came on, I was always the 1 to 8, 8 to 1 council member, always voting against. But I don't need to remind Ward 6 how I voted. They always ask, and they definitely know about the hot button issues, how I vote. So don't need to rehash that. Thank you to my constituents. Thank you to everyone who watched. I hope this was very informative to you. If you have any further questions from me, absolutely please reach out to me. Thank you to League of Women Voters for hosting this. And to Mr. Torvey, I know that this is not easy. I've been a candidate before. I've been in this for a long time. And it's very hard and it can be very personal and negative. And so I appreciate your campaign being very, very positive and respectful. And I hope that you feel the same way about me. So Ward 6, please go vote. February 8th, vote your conscience, but please go vote.
Thank you. Gail Hobson.
Yes, thank you to the League for having us tonight, especially to the citizens of Ward 4 who have greeted me at their doors. And I have learned to love and gotten lots of hugs from those young people out there that just want us to do the right thing in this as we represent them. I have spent 40 years as a doctor of psychology. I've worked in hospitals and in private practice. My life has been professional, purposeful, and positive in my contributions, and I want to make Norman better. I'm known as a doer, not a talker. I'll always put results above rhetoric, and I want to do that for our children, grandchildren, and helping all rise all boats in this community.
Thank you. Dwayne Harrison.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. First, let me respond to Ms. Hobson and her personal attacks on my character. I've been under ethical scrutiny my entire career, never had any ethical complaints against me. I would never intentionally break the law. I realize that tampering with U.S. mail is a serious matter, but it's my first campaign. I did not realize it was wrong to put flyers in mailboxes, and we are no longer doing this. So, as a council for Ward 4, I'll promote economic growth. I'll be pro-business to bring new business in. I will promote funding for Norman Police and Norman Fire, and I'll work to deal with the growing homeless population. So thanks again for hosting. I appreciate it very much. And everybody, please vote February 8th so we can change the course of this great city.
Thank you. Helen Grant.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Women League of Voters, for hosting this, especially giving us a Zoom option. It took a second to get acclimated, But in closing, I've served on the Community Development Block Grant that put multi-use exercise equipment in Cape Park, so I'm always thinking about equity. I served in an Inclusive Community Subcommittee, which brought about our Diversity and Equity Officer that is helping with hires right now. I've done Norman Crew / evolved into Norman Caravans, and I have worked on the Community Fridge Ordinance. And I live, work, play in Ward 4. I understand small businesses are struggling right now, not only with the homelessness problem, but also economically. And if elected, I would definitely be listening to all the constituents and doing my best to address your issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Borum?
I knocked on every door. I didn't care whether somebody was a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. I wanted to know what every single person thought. I believe that we need to make sure that we have compromises and see the needs of everybody is equally important. I was outraged and upset when I found out that one of a lot of the people, almost every single person I talked to was outraged over the homeless shelter being placed near our schools, our elementary schools. And one of the constituents who had a Gail Hobson sign in her yard, I went up and I knocked on her door, and she was outraged. She was so upset at all the crime that has been happening to her and in her community since Food and Shelter moved in. And I asked what Gail Hobson had said about it because I wanted to know if she supported the shelter or not. And when she said that she had told Gail about all this, she didn't say anything. She didn't respond at all. I think it's important that whoever is running needs to.
Thank you. Lauren Schuler?
Yes, thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and for helping to keep citizens up to speed and engaged in our local elections. Before serving on council, just a couple of kind of resume points. I did the Citizens Police Academy. I was a part of Leadership Norman and served on the UNP TIF Oversight Committee. So I have investment in this community. I've done background work. I've been working with the city prior to my appointment. And since I've been working on council, I have dug right into all of the issues. I am working with constituents, not only in Ward 2, but across the city on things that really matter. And I will continue to show up, to work hard, and to communicate with you. My campaign is really about transparency, stability, and accountability. And I hope to continue to do that for you.
Thank you. John Argo?
I've been helping residents and businesses solve problems in Norman, Oklahoma, in Ward 2 for 50 years, and I know how to do it, and we're doing it on a smaller scale. If I worked with the city council members and the mayor, we can do it on a larger scale. So you know how I feel. You know how I feel about the police, but what really set me off and made me want to run was I was sitting right over there about 20 feet the night that the city had the problem with the police, the people coming in there and bad-mouthing all our police. And I sat up there, and somebody, I couldn't see because there was such a group of people up there, but somebody called our entire city council and the mayor a bunch of racists, and nobody stood up for them at all up here, and that upset me. And I wasn't sitting here, so I can't talk for them, but I said, if that happened and I was up here, I'll stand up for our city and our city council and our people that live here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes our City Council forum for this evening. I want to, on behalf of the Norman League of Women Voters, I want to thank Brenda Hall and the Norman City Hall staff, our forum participants, and our audience. This forum has been an effort to inform the public about important issues in the election, which will be on Tuesday, February the 8th. I want to remind our viewers that if you want to revisit this, or you have friends that missed it and want to watch it, the video for this program will be posted on the League's website and on the League's Facebook page over the next couple of days. And we also have the video from the Mayor's Forum as well. Thank you very much for watching, and please vote on February the 8th.